Hello everyone, I'm Tania, and today with my partner Gabriela Buelvas, we're going to talk a little bit about the whole language approach. So let's begin. Let's begin with the background of this approach. The term whole language was created in the 1980s by a group of US educators concerned with the teaching of language arts, that is, reading and writing in the native language. The teaching of reading and writing in the first language is a very active educational action worldwide. And like the field of the second language teaching has led to a number of different and at times competing approaches and methodologies. So the whole language movement is strongly opposed to these approaches to teaching reading and writing and argues that language should be taught as a whole. There's this author called Rick that said in 1991 that if language isn't kept whole, it isn't language anymore. So the whole language is a theory of language instruction that was developed to help young children learn to read and has also been extended to middle and secondary levels and to the teaching of ESL. It began as a holistic way to change key aspects such as respect for students as members of a culture and as creators of knowledge, and also respect for teachers as professionals. This approach is designed to help children and adults to learn a second language in the same way that children learn their first language.
Well, now let's talk about the approach theory of language and learning. Whole language views language organization from what we have early called an international perspective. This perspective is most obvious as social one that views language as a vehicle for human communication, and in which there is an international relationship between readers and writers. Whole language is also viewed as language physical linguistically as a vehicle for internal interaction, for egocentric speech, for thinking. Language is always seen as something that is used for meaningful purposes and to carry out authentic functions. The learning theory underlying whole language is in the humanistic and constructivistic schools. The description of whole language classroom recalls terms familiar to education and to language learning. Whole language is said to be authentic, personalized, self-directed, collaborative, and pluralistic. Such as characteristics are believed to focus learning attention and to motivate mastery. Constructive learning theory holds that knowledge is social constructor, rather than received or discovered. Well, continuous talking, we are going to talk about the design objectives, syllabus, learning activities, roles of learner, teachers, and materials. The major principles underlying the design of all language instructions are as follows. The use of authentic literature rather than artificial, especially prepared text and exercise designed to practice individual reading skills, a focus on real and natural events rather than on specifically writing stories that do not relate to the student's experience, and the reading of real texts of high interest, particularly literature. Also, we can find reading for the sake of comprehension and for a real purpose, and writing for a real audience and not simply to practice writing skills. The teacher is seen as a facilitator and active participant in the learning community rather than an expert basing of knowledge. The teacher creates a climate that will support collaborative learning. The teacher has the responsibility of negotiation, a plan of work with the learners. And also the learner is a collaborator, collaborating with fellow students, with the teacher, and with writer of text. Also, students are evaluators, evaluating their own and others' learning with the help of the teacher. Well, now let's talk about the procedure. The issue of what instructional characteristics are specific to whole language is somewhat problematic. Bergion found that whole language was described differently in each article of the 64 articles she survived. She found only 4 classroom features mentioned in more than 50% of the articles. This includes the use of literature, the use of process writing, encouragement of cooperative learning among students, concern for students' attitude, and we also found that the activities that are often used in whole language instruction are individual and small group, reading and writing, ungraded dialogue like journals, and writing portfolios, writing conference, students make books like, the journals where you can write your day or about something you like, and a story writing. Teaching and task-based language teaching, perhaps the only feature of whole language that does not also appear centrally in discussions of communication approach to language teaching is the focus on literature. Although this has always been of concern to other writers on ELT methodology, suggestion for exploration of literary resources in the whole language classroom will be familiar to language teachers with a similar interest in the use of literature in support of second language learning. What differs in whole language teaching is not the incidental use of such as activities based on the topic of the lesson or an item in the syllabus, but their use as part of the overall philosophy of teaching and learning that give a new meaning and purpose to such as activities.
Okay, now after knowing everything that talks about whole language, everything about how it works, now let's see how it is implemented in the classroom. Well, first of all, the whole language is not merely a method of, instruction. It's both theory and practice, and it's very used in reading and language acquisition. In whole language classroom, students' time is occupied by writing, reading, listening, and talking about the world around them and the relationship to it. They are literally like placed in the middle of language. These experiences are essential for making meaning out of language and developing within students the motivation to read, write, and learn. So students are not informed only of like the purpose of language, but its history, its development, its diversity, and also they perform a variety of tasks to practice language in a multitude ways, such as poetry, riddles, word games, dramas, idioms, journals, letter writing, and many more that my partner mentioned before. So, in conclusion, the whole language movement is not a teaching method, but an approach to learning that sees language as a whole entity. It all depends to the needs of particular classes to implement an approach. Some advantages that the whole language offers are that number one, it focuses on experiences and activities that are relevant to the students' lives and needs. Number two, it uses authentic materials like the ones we mentioned before. And number three, it can be used to facilitate the development of other aspects of a second language. But it is often seen by critics as a rejection of the whole ESL approach in language teaching and one that seeks to apply native language principles to ESL. Its proposals are seen as anti-direct teaching, anti-skills, and anti-materials. Still, many language teachers have argued that, well, the whole language promotes fluency at the expense of accuracy. On the other hand, supporters of this approach, the whole language, have developed like a rich array of materials that can offer an integrated approach to ESL instruction and that can be adapted for use in a wide variety of contexts for better results. So this would be all for the whole language approach. We hope you were able to understand everything and thank you.